It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Commander Corinne Devin. Was born overseas and lived in 6 different military bases while her father, retired Robert F. Devin, served in the Dental Corp. 9 generations of a distinguished naval family preceded Corinne and inspired her to pursue a career in the United States Navy. She deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2009 with the United States Navy to Al-Asad, Iraq, and has enjoyed her travel to over 50 countries in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. Her professional education consists of a bachelor's degree in communication from St. Mary's College, Doctorate of Dental Medicine from University of Nevada, Las Vegas School of Dental Medicine, advanced education in general dentistry, master's degree in oral biology from Uniform Services, University of Health Sciences, Tri-Service Orthodontic Residency Program, and board certification as a Diplomate of the American Board of Orthodontics. She is the department head of dental specialties and the sole orthodontic provider where she proudly serves the military, active duty, and their families at United States Naval Hospital, Signola. She currently lives in Catania, Sicily, Italy, and has a love for fitness, travel, and pageantry. Devin's personal awards and decorations include Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, 5 awards, Fleet Marine Force Officer Insignia, and the Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal, 2 awards for her active involvement in the community. But she's been in dentistry 13 years, but if you count the time she worked at her dad's office, who was also a Navy dentist, then she's been in it 24 years. My gosh, thank you so much for coming on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Buonasera from Italia. It is truly a pleasure to be here, Howard, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh my God, and how timely, because Italy, when the corona broke out, Italy was a hot spot. Now United States is a hot spot. And so how's the hot spot of Italy? How was it practicing in the middle of a pandemic in Italy?
You know, the best way I can describe it, it felt like a bomb went off and you just had no clue that it went off. I remembered I literally had got off the airplane the Sunday before, that night before I went to work the next day. And then the Italian prime minister ordered the entire country, which was about 33 million people, to go into quarantine. And it was like all of a sudden you're in a movie, but you just don't know when that movie is going to end. And here in Sicily, or as the Italians would say, Sicilia, we were a bit shielded because we were pretty far south. The north was the area that was impacted. However, what really started making it real was that many people in northern Italy have southern homes here, and about 15,000 of them fled. And when they came here, all of our numbers skyrocketed. And that's when it really made you feel like, okay, this is a real thing. We're not invincible. It's not just something I see going on somewhere else. And so our hospital immediately started setting up us in teams in a blue and a gold. We would go in every other day. We started really triaging patient care to just emergency care only. We started really upping our personal protective equipment. So I look like the lunch lady now when I practice. I wear an N95 mask. I have a hairnet. I have a full-on gown. And we really streamlined the patients that we saw. And it was hard because there was patients who needed care, and we really had to screen them heavily and make sure it was something that they could wait if possible. But we've recovered. We're slowly getting back on track. It feels great. And I don't know, every day I just count my blessings, to be honest. I just count for the things I'm grateful for.
So is the movie over in Italy? I mean, is it all pretty much back to normal?
I wouldn't say the movie's over. I would say what you'll notice very much if you're able to travel to Italy, which I know right now anyone from the United States would have a very difficult time getting here unless you have some sort of citizenship here in Europe, is that you'll find that a lot of places that would be very busy and crowded are not. In Italy, they don't get a stimulus package like we do here in the States. So I definitely see a lot more people that were without jobs, restaurants, stores that never reopened because they just never recovered. I've see a lot more people that are homeless, people that are refugees. And so I work on a military base, and we've done a lot of what are called comrails, which are community related events where we go out in the community and find ways to really help who's there. I don't think Italy will fully recover. It'll probably be years and years and years. In northern Italy, where they were hit the heaviest, there is complete towns that are gone, wiped out, completely gone, because most people don't realize that Italy has a very large older population. I believe Japan is the only other country in the world that has a large population in that age frame. And so it's really quite sad, but I'm glad I'm able to visit my Italian parents, as I call. They've become people that pretty much have adopted me, and other people, but we just wear a mask everywhere we go. Traveling is much different. And I guess in some ways it's a new normal until we get a vaccination or treatment where we can really kick this virus to the curb.
I don't think anybody wants to talk about it, but the bottom line is we lost the decade of 2020 economically. I mean, it's going to be a full decade to get back to where we were before that thing dropped. Now, you're in 3 weeks, you said you're transferring to Japan.
Yes, I'm moving in a few weeks out of my beautiful home here in Italy, which I'm so sad to go. And then I will be relocating to Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, Japan in September. So that'll be my new home for the next few years.
So do you think the biggest thing between the, where this broke out in China, in Wuhan, all their neighboring countries really didn't have a big issue. I mean, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan. I mean, they have mental. Do you think it's mainly because they've been to this rodeo before? They had it first in 2012, and this was the first time Italy and the United States really had something. I mean, going back, like, whenever the Ebola was in the news, I mean, all of America's, well, that's over in Africa. That has nothing to do with the United States. Do you think it was just because this is our first rodeo and we just really didn't have a plan? And if we would have been hit in 2012, we would have had Italy would have had the same response as Japan, where you're going.
Yeah, I mean, but we also have to remember the virus that hit SARS is a much different animal than what coronavirus does, because one thing is you can have a large young population that's very asymptomatic and be carriers and not realize it. But, one thing I can definitely say about Asian countries and, the Eastern population versus the West, because I was stationed in Japan for 2.5 years, is wearing masks and keeping keeping people at distance. That's already something that's ingrained in their culture. That's already something that we do. So for us in the United States to wear a mask on our face routinely wherever we go, it's still a foreign object. It's something that we haven't really truly adopted. We're doing it for right now, but that's pretty much it. So it's one of those things that I definitely saw. And I also noticed when I was living in Japan, it was the cleanest country I've ever been to. You could not find a piece of trash anywhere on the ground to save your life. Where in Italy, it's not always quite the same scenario everywhere you go. So, and in Italy, it's a very close culture where people, they hug, they kiss on the cheek. They're very, very close. And that's how this virus spread. So I think you're looking at a couple factors that can really play a role in this.
How long have you been in Italy? Because I see you're already talking with your hands very, very well. You look like you're a native.
I've been here for 3 years, and I truly hope to come back. This is a beautiful country. There's things that I love here and other things that drive me nuts. I think I'll miss driving, which might surprise some of your listeners. So driving in Italy is like my personalized video game every day. I have people that cut me off. I have people that skirt in front of me. I think last week we had a motorcycle that was trying to cut in front of us, and his bike went underneath this truck when I was with some Marines. However, that being said, I've just gotten used to it. I've adjusted to it. So I know I'll be able to drive like that when I go back to the U.S. or in Japan.
What I think is funny is in the United States, we have Italian restaurants everywhere. But when you go to Italy, it's a whole different level of Italian food. And I was sitting there, my son Eric, I was lecturing in what's the one with all the water? Venice. And it was just like the greatest lasagna in the world. And Eric's like, Dad, we go to the greatest Italian restaurants in Phoenix. Why do they not have real Italian food? And it really is kind of true, because if you leave Arizona and go to Mexico, Mexican food isn't anything like all the Americans think. I mean, in fact, by the time you get to Acapulco, if you ordered 2 tacos and a cheese enchilada, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. But man, the Italian food there is at a different level than anything I've seen in Phoenix.
I am going to miss it. And I will tell you, if you come to Sicily, it's even better. So all my friends who've come here who have gluten allergies, lactose intolerant, they can eat anything here. Everything. I just had a friend that here this weekend. She was shocked that she could eat everything because they don't believe in processed food. They don't believe, like, you go to the grocery store multiple times. You go and buy fresh ravioli and and you ask her what's in it. She's like, wheat, flour, water. Like, that's it. She's like, if you don't eat in the next 3 days, it's going to go bad. So I think there's something to be said by the food. I know I'm going to miss it terribly when I leave here. So,
Yeah, I thought it was also funny. You know, the great thing about having a monthly column, since I've had a monthly column since '94, I've done 1,500 shows, that if you say anything incorrect, they email you, howard@dentaltown.com, and let you know you're correct. But it's funny because you always associate tomatoes with Italian food, and tomatoes were were discovered in Peru, and they didn't even make it to Italy to the 16th century. And you just think that they were the ones who found tomatoes and made the tomato sauce and all that, and Italian food was going for 1,600 years without a tomato, which seems crazy.
one thing your listeners will know, there's no such thing as Italian dressing in Italy, and there's also no such thing as Alfredo in Italy. That's something that came over to the U.S. and was coined post World War II. So yeah, I always found it interesting when people challenge me on that. So,
And for dentistry, I mean, if Italy sticks out in dentistry in any way, I think the most weighted way it sticks out, they have 75 different implant manufacturers, over 75 companies making their own original implants, not resellers. There's a lot of people who buy implants from other people and repackage them. Italy has like 75 different places that make dental implants, and then they're branded under 400 names. Why is that?
I think part of it is most people don't realize that Italy used to be 13 separate kingdoms. It wasn't actually unified until post World War II. So believe it or not, unified Italy is actually younger than the United States. And what I've learned living here is that every region, so Venice, where you spoke, is considered the Veneto region. And next to it is the Piedmont and the Lombardy region. Every region speaks a little bit differently and has a little bit of a different culture. Even here in Sicily, they speak Sicilian, which I don't understand. I've been learning Italian, and I might as well be talking to a brick wall. They'll tell me no capito all the time. And so where I'm going with that is that when you look at these dental companies that are in different regions within Italy, even though they're all still from Italy, you still have many people who are deep rooted in their traditions or deep rooted in their region. It's almost like a little bit of a rivalry. That's like a football rivalry between like two colleges in the same state, or one state versus another state. It's so that would probably be the best way I could explain it from what I've learned so far.
Those languages are tough. When my oldest sister, when she first joined the nunnery, the first job they gave her was as a translator for old archived historical documents that they wanted in English. And she was telling me how she was doing it, and I was telling her, you need a computer for that. So I bought their monastery. The first computer was a Macintosh, and she just fell in love with it. I think she used it for like 10 years before she upgraded, but she was telling me just the detail it takes to translate something with all these dialects and trying to get the original. So right now, on the top of everyone's mind, I'm not worried. I turned 58 this month, so I'm not worried about all the 60-year-old dentists with grandchildren. I'm worried about the class of 2020, the class of COVID. We just graduated 6,000 people, and they're not finding jobs. It's tough. On Dental Town, we always had about 5,000 jobs listed in the classified ads for a dental associate, and about 1,000 people selling their practice. Now it's 2,000 people selling their practice and only 1,000 jobs. So everybody listening to this right now, that I know what the kids are thinking. You're in the Navy. Are they hiring?
I would definitely say it's worth looking into. I would seek out a recruiter. I came into the Navy actually with a scholarship called the Health Profession Scholarship Program. And I will tell you that being a dentist in the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force is pretty much the same job. We just wear a different uniform, and we operate at different places. The thing that I would mention to any of these new residents who are graduating, looking to join the military, is be okay with deploying. Be okay with having no control in your life on where you will be going. I'm telling you right now, I'm moving in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not going to have my stuff for about 4 months. And whenever I move, there's always a possibility as it floats on a crate across the ocean that I'm looking right in front of me, that it could just kind of say la vie, be gone, completely gone. But I always look at it as an adventure. I look at it as I have the honor and the privilege of serving our active duty who, do such a greater good and being part of something bigger than myself. And so if that's something that really, catches your interest, and the viewers or the people listening here, have them reach out to me. I'm happy to point them in direction of some really amazing recruiters, because that's what I did. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and the Navy has given me a lot of opportunity, and it paid for my education. And for that, I mean, that's priceless, especially right now.
I feel awkward saying this, but when I was in dental school, I never met anybody in the Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines like that was a female. I mean, there were always male recruiters coming in. And you're a big wig and a female. Was that less common in the 80s and 90s than it is in 2020? Is it more of a lot more females in role models and leadership?
I would say there, we have come a long way, but if you look at the entire armed forces in general, only 18% of it is made up of females. And then if you look as we progress in ranks, so I'm a commander, which is an O5. If you're looking at what that would be in the Marine Corps, the Army, or Air Force, that's equivalent to a lieutenant colonel. Only 0.29% make that rank, or currently that rank. So yes, there is not a lot of females in the military. But one thing I would tell, especially your female dentist grads, is don't let that stop you from joining. I feel that with a female voice, there's a lot of things I've gotten done. And I'll share with your listeners a really neat story. When I was deployed in Asad, Iraq, so this is a country where women are not treated the same as they are in the United States. I worked at a very austere dental clinic, meaning that if I hit my pants to wipe off my hands, you would see sand go everywhere. So pretty much anyone that I did extractions, I was prescribing amoxicillin across the board just because it wasn't sterile. We're out in the field. And I remember one day where our electricity went out, and all my dental assistants, they're called corpsmen in the Navy, were males. And they say, hey doc, can you please call the contracting office? Even though I know it's their job to do. Well, the reason that they had me call was that even though they'd been calling all morning, the fact that I had a female voice and can smile and make people feel like I'm smiling at them on the phone meant that those gentlemen that fixed our electrical circuit were there in 20 minutes. So I would definitely tell you have a stronger voice than you realize, and you have a lot more assets you may not know that you may have, especially in the military. And there's a lot of women. I mean, we need women who are going to come and succeed after I leave the military. So yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an area we could definitely grow. And I'm even seeing it here in Italy. In Italy, women were not allowed to join the military till the year 2000. So it's been really neat to partner up with them here as well.
You talk about the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, but in dentistry, the Marines part is Navy, right? So the Navy takes care of all the Marines?
Yes, sir. The Marines are a department of the Navy. They do not like hearing that. They always joke that they're the men's department, but yes, the Marines are a department of the Navy. So
they're the men's department?
That's what they always say. They always like to say they're the men's department. But when we're deployed with them, in fact, when I go to the Marine Corps Air Station in Iwakuni, Japan, I will wear their uniform. But on my side, it'll say U.S. Navy and not U.S. Marines. But yes, I will tell you, I've never been with a safer group of men who would catch bullets for me.
And is it true that Army stands for ain't ready for Marine Corps yet?
I don't know if I can say that. I do have some friends and colleagues in the Army that I do appreciate, that I've worked side by side. But let's just say I am very happy to be in the Navy after being with every branch of service since I joined. And it feels great. I will definitely be in Navy for the rest of my career.
So to me, it just seems like if you were in charge of dentistry in the Navy, which also includes the Marines, that almost all your patients would be, probably 85% would be boys between, 18 and 25? Is it mostly just young males? Or is there a lot of staff where you're treating a lot of older men and women and families and children? Or
Well, it really depends on where you are stationed and what your job is. So after I came into the Navy, I did a 1-year AEGD, and some of my colleagues did GPR, and some did what's called a credential tour, which means they went straight into the fleet. But after that, we have a choice of either being on a ship. So when you're on a carrier or one of these large amphibious ships, your population for the most part is exactly what you described. Majority of them are 18 to 24, majority males, small percentage of females. And then obviously your commanding officers, some of your executive staff are in, the next tier of age groups. If you were deployed with the Marines, it is a very usually young, healthy population that you're with. And for them, your focus is making sure you can get them out to battle as quickly as possible. Then you throw in overseas, and being an orthodontist overseas, we do treat family members. So I get to not just see, service member Joe, but I get to meet his wife, Mary, his son, John, his daughter, Rebecca. I get to see everyone. And for me, I really enjoyed overseas because the camaraderie that you build with these families is just, it's amazing. I mean, you really feel like you're part of the community.
The orthodontics part surprised me. I figured it was all MOD amalgams and extracting wisdom teeth. Like if you were a dentist on a Navy, like an aircraft carrier, would you actually be putting people in ortho, or are kids put in ortho that are sent to battle?
No. So orthodontics is not a treatment or a service that's offered to any of our service members if they are in an operational billet. So operational would be, like you said, a ship. It could be with the Marines where they're kind of going in and out. So it's only something I'm able to offer my active duty if they are what's called shore duty, which means they're not deploying. They're pretty much staying put for a few years.
And so are you more into clear aligners versus fixed, or what would your ratio be of fixed brackets versus like Invisalign?
I would love to do clear aligners, but right now the Navy has us stick to fixed appliances. So right now, a lot of us just do twin brackets. I would love, as much as I'd love to do clear aligners, they do cost more money. We don't have a 3D printer. I do know that the Navy's orthodontic program is acquiring one, and that's something that they're bringing into practice. But right now, the Navy, if they can get something done that's been done for 100 years and it's a fraction of the cost, that is how we are putting your taxpayer dollars at work. So the difference for me, I would say, is every place I've gone, the culture and the vibe is a little bit different. So overseas, I get to treat everyone, the kids, the parents, the people in the service. We're back in the States. It's really a lot of surgery, a lot of full mouth rehab, and only active duty.
You should talk. Have you talked to Joe Hogan, the CEO of Invisalign?
I haven't, but I would love to meet him. I don't know when I'll be able to come back to the States to go to an orthodontic conference, but I would love to meet him in person.
I'll email both of you, because he might want it, and he might be able. I mean, if anybody could get Invisalign in the Navy at the same price, it would be that guy. But it'd be amazing what his mind thought of that. You know what I mean? I mean, he might. But I'll connect you two via email. And I'll send you his podcast and your podcast, so you can watch each other's podcasts and decide if it's something he may want to do.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Howard.
Yeah. You never know how that works. So what would you say to kids in dental school that are thinking, maybe I would like to go into the armed forces?
I would ask them, what do they envision for their career? Like, what is their why? Because for me, growing up in a military family, if you told my 8-year-old self that watched my dad go to Operation Desert Storm that I would pick up and do the same job, I would say you were crazy, absolutely crazy. But for me, I was so impressed how that every faculty member that I worked with in my dental school who wasn't afraid to try something outside the box, who always seemed to be that MacGyver that always had a solution to a problem, they all served in the military. Whether they did 2 years, 4 years, they did it before they became a dentist or after they became a dentist, I really admire the breadth of experience that they had and how they were really able to leverage that and bring that to my education. And so for me, that was one of the compelling factors to joining. The other factor was having a job right after I graduated. I didn't have to wait for my Nevada dental license to go in effect. I could go straight into a program where I'm getting paid as a resident, probably more than any resident in the country, to serve the military, but also to learn from a lot of great mentors. And that's the thing that I love is, especially, I got my orthodontic residency, my AGD, everything was paid for by the Navy, and also accrued time towards promotion, towards rank, towards a pension. And now I get to be the quarterback on a football team with all these different specialists where our common goal is to take care of the patient, and we're willing to do the Cadillac of treatment. So for me, if that sounds like something that you as a dental student or someone who's going to dental school want to do, then I would say the military is for you. Yes, you have to wear a uniform, but don't worry. If the beauty queen here can do it, you can definitely do it. And you can do as many push-ups they can tell you. Because I can tell you the one thing about the military I love is it keeps me in great shape. And it also keeps me fine-tuned to handle anything that comes at me next.
My God, I don't want to say this, but you actually are an official beauty queen. If you Google image Corinne Devin, so it's CORINNE DMD MS. Oh my God, you are a beauty queen pageant. And those are some amazing pictures. I love the one where you're in uniform, you're in business attire, and you're in beauty queen attire. Tell us your journey. Obviously, you are a beauty queen. How did that journey come about?
That started as a complete dare from someone in my dental school class. So I was not one of the little tiara and tot girls. I was born and raised on military bases. My family would have me stew nothing of that. But it happened when I was in dental school. You know, I had a colleague who was listening to my conversation with one of my friends who had watched the Miss USA pageant. And the second runner up was a dental student. And she was like, Corinne, you should do this. And here I am, 5'3", thinking that you have to be, you know, a mile tall. You have to look a certain way. Some jerk in our class was like, Corinne could never do it. And I just turned around and I said, watch me. And my first year competed, I got first runner up. And it opened my eyes to a whole nother world. And from there, you know, the rest is history. I've been blessed with a lot of great people that I've met along the way, a lot of great skills. You know, people don't realize, but pageantry, the military, and dentistry have a lot of commonalities. And once you kind of peel back maybe what you see that's sensationalized in media, you realize that there's so much more there, such as camaraderie, tradition, service. I'm in better shape for a pageant when I compete on stage than I am for any military physical fitness test. I am better ready to walk into a board where I have to talk to a CO, let's say of a Navy SEAL team, and I've got to convince him to allow me to take care of one of his Navy SEALs. And he tells me I've got 10 minutes, and I tell him I only need one. So those are some of the great things that I've learned from pageantry that I've brought into the military and dentistry.
I love it. I love the write-up. If you go to pageantplanet.com, beautiful write-up. It says, dedication, communication, results with a genuine smile on my face and my office adorned with my beauty pageant crown hanging beside my Navy uniform. I am a doctor, an officer, and the International Miss 2020. That is amazing. It says, dentistry and duty run in my blood. My father, also a dentist, inspired my love of service and teeth. I followed his footsteps, becoming a Navy officer, a heritage that goes back to the Revolutionary War, and earned me a Daughters of the American Revolution's college scholarship. While I continue my service as a Navy orthodontist based off base, I have a passion for working with civilian kids and their moms. It goes on, but it's a beautiful write-up. But I can't believe it says, you've lived and visited with over 50 countries. I mean, that's really like a dental degree. My four boys, every single one of them say that they learn more traveling with dad to these international countries and around the United States. I mean, they've been to a lot of countries, and they said they learned more from that than they did sitting in college reading books. Do you look at it that way? Did it kind of, living in 50 countries, just really open up your mind?
It really does. I believe that education is always good because it gives you that foundation. It kind of opens your eyes to maybe thinking about things you haven't thought of. But then once you go there and you live it and you hear it and you see it, it really makes those things you read about in the textbooks come alive. So I definitely feel it's a compilation. I can't share with you. There's been definitely times I've learned about things in history that I don't remember reading about textbooks. And because of I'll give you a great example, going to going to Cambodia and seeing the killing fields in Puttapan, which I don't remember learning about, and seeing a Holocaust that was really not that long ago, we're talking 40 years ago, I was awestruck. And because of that, I was watching documentaries. I was making sure to go to museums back in Washington, D.C. to learn more about it, because I felt it was a civic duty for me that if you do not remember history, you are bound to repeat it.
And what was that? Also, the new thing, that big temple in southern Cambodia they found.
You were talking about Angkor Wat?
Yeah, I mean that was all covered with jungle not that long ago. I mean, it was a recent discovery, and it's just an amazing. I mean, seeing those killing fields and then walking around that temple. I mean, it was a very somber day for me and the boys. I mean, they couldn't believe the museum for the killing fields. I mean, that was just crazy. I
Yes,
mean, you
it's
get a
just
new government, the next thing you know, 30% of the people are killed. I mean, it's just crazy.
yeah, it's definitely eye-opening. I think what the part that struck me the most was the fact that anyone who was educated was executed at those killing fields, which really it really makes you think about the culture and the atmosphere that those people were living in. And they were you were scared to learn how to read, you're scared to learn how to speak another language. It's something that it's unfathomable. It would never even cross my mind today to know something like that could
And that
exist.
was that play was right out of Mao Zedong. I mean, when everybody was in World War II and no one was looking, he just went across the countryside and he'd go to a town. And he'd say, "I need all the intellectuals to have a town meeting." So all the dentists, doctors, teachers, lawyers, the whole intelligentsia would show up, and then he'd kill them. And then the
Yeah.
only people left was these less educated rural farmers. And my gosh, it's really hard to rule a bunch of highly educated people with a smartphone. So hopefully this. I really do. I'm the most optimistic guy on the future after 2007 when Jobs took a touch screen, your music collection, your telephone, and the internet and put them in one device. I said, that's like Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like the individual just arrived. So you would have the playbook that someone's coming to town and he's going to get all the intellectuals to come together. And indeed, you don't show up at that meeting, empty handed. So I'm going to ask another an ortho question, then a leadership question. Orthognathic surgery. When I got out of school in '87 and the first patient of mine got orthognathic surgery, I was so dumb. I went and visited him at the hospital just to be polite, even though it was
Oh,
between the orthodontist and the oral surgeon. But when I saw his head, the swelling, I mean, I was a dentist who loved pulling wisdom teeth, and I was scared. And but a lot of people tell me that it's gotten a lot more conservative and less invasive, the orthognathic surgery, in the last 30 years. Do you see that, orthognathic surgery of 1990 versus 2020?
well, I have to say all the orthodontic surgery that I've witnessed started back in 2007 when I joined the military. Oral surgeons were the ones who really were my cheerleaders and champions to have me go into orthodontics because they loved how I worked side by side and would but I really love developing a relationship with my patients and getting to know them for 2 years. And I would definitely say it has because they realize, there's limits to what they can do. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I really admire that whenever in the military we have orthognathic boards, it is a team of people. It's not just one surgeon and one orthodontist. It's at the very minimum 4 or 5 doctors looking at a case, each bringing their own experience, their own background of education, their own concerns about the patient. And for me, it's really astonishing the results that we can do and provide people in the military. And it's totally free. It is 100% covered. So I would definitely tell you the military probably does it just as much as these academic institutions. And it's something that I really enjoyed because you're able to have someone where now they can chew with their teeth they can never chew before, or now they feel comfortable smile. Let's be honest, everyone wants a beautiful smile. I don't care if you're 8 or 88 years old, it's something you want. And if you can give that to someone, especially someone who wears the fabric of our nation, it's just it's priceless. So yeah.
Another thing in ortho, I always like Dentistry Uncensored. I always like talk about everything that's controversial. I don't want to talk about anything that anybody agrees on. But one of the things that's always a debate on Dental Town and in the media and on Ortho Town, I'm not allowed to go on Ortho Town because that's just, you got to be an orthodontist to go on Ortho Town. That's cool. That's their tribe and that's how they want it. But, there's always that 30-year debate. Is this for cosmetics or is this for function? When people say orthodontics and orthodontics for function, I mean, I think of my uncle back in the day when I was in dental school. When I was in dental school, I went to a family reunion and was standing next to my 88-year-old uncle with 0 teeth eating almonds. And so I actually stood up because he was about 6'3". I actually stood on a stool because I told him I wanted to see him eat an almond. I couldn't figure this out. I was in dental school. And he had
Yeah.
these calloused ridges, and he'd put an almond in there, bite down, just dust it. I mean, and then you look at the fact that in America, it's something like, I think they're saying 46% of the country's overweight. it makes you think that orthodontics is mainly cosmetic. You're a beauty pageant. You're a beauty queen. You're Miss 2000. Is all your orthodontic surgeries and orthodontics for the most part just to look more pretty and be as pretty as a peacock as opposed to form, function, and health?
I definitely can see the argument for both sides. One thing I will tell you is just to put things in perspective. So your audience knows I'm a Navy officer, and again, these views are my views, not the Department of Defense. When I share these, and I will definitely say that no one dies from crooked teeth. There's only 20 orthodontists in the Navy in the entire world. That is it. That is it. So is orthodontics required for a sailor to go out to sea and do his mission? No. But where orthodontics does play a role is, let's say that they had an altercation where they got shrapnel that came to their face, or they took a bullet from an insurgent, and now their teeth are kind of mumbled up, and I've got to move the teeth in a place that makes it the best scenario for the restorative dentist to fully rehab. So to me, I would argue that's not just a cosmetic thing, but that's more of a function thing. Very often in the military, someone who comes in with some minor crowding does not get accepted for orthodontic treatment. As much as I love doing those cases, as much as those would be so much fun, I would argue that in the military, we take the cases where the patients have a crazy discrepancy index score. So just to give your audience an idea, we as orthodontists, we have an index that talks about the difficulty of the case. So in order for us to take our boards, we have to have a couple cases that fall below a score of 10 and a couple cases that fall below the score of a 20. I would tell you, when I was in San Diego treating solely active duty, I did not accept a case with a score lower than a 30. So for a lot of the patients that I treat, that was the only way to treat them, or the only way for the restorative dentist to treat them is I would have to move teeth, upright teeth, or spread out teeth in order for them to get implants, or in order for them to restore the missing teeth that they had, or maintain maybe bone that they lost where teeth were extracted and they never were replaced.
So do they call you Commander Dr. Devin, or what? How does, or is it which comes first? Commander comes before doctor, I assume?
Well, they always say in the military that we are a soldier first and we are occupation section. So people do call me Commander Devin, but because I work in a hospital, I'm very laid back. I do prefer Dr. Devin. Commander Devin, it was my father when he retired from the military. So I only reserve that the few times that I'm in uniform. Some of my patients, I think a lot of the kids call me Dr. Corinne because it just makes it seems to be easier for them.
Now, when you're in Japan, don't they have a beer called Corinne? Isn't that?
They do have a beer called Corinne. I haven't had that one, but I will definitely look forward to having it. But actually in Japan, they will call me sensei. Sensei, like karate. That's in Japan when I was there stationed last, they say it's what they call teacher and doctor, and it's a form of respect. So something for me to look forward to. In Italy, it's doctoressa.
Wow, that is so cool. I want to go, I want to take advantage of having a leader in an all-male military deal. When on Dental Town, a lot of the women have leadership questions. A lot, just standard complaints that I became an associate for this older man. This is how he managed. He'd say, "Get me a cup of coffee. Go do this. Can you drop this off?" Blah blah blah. She works with him a couple of years. She buys the practice, and then she says they don't treat me like the retired male. They treat me differently. It seems to be a stressful thing. A lot of women, especially younger girls, they're 25, 26, 28 years old, and they buy a practice, and now they're in charge of a staff of 5 to 10 people. What advice would you give them for leadership, especially if you went into the Navy, which was mostly male leaderships, and now women are growing, and she just bought an old man out, and she swears it's different. Do you think it really is different, or do you think it's her perception or her emotional intelligence? How much of it is, oh, that's a cop-out, that's an excuse, versus, yeah, you're probably really seeing that in the real world?
I would definitely say I have seen that in the real world. It is tough, and I would definitely say I've been fortunate that I've had some good leaders very early on who empowered me and told me, there's a time and a place to speak up. And there's also times where you've got to pick and choose your battles. One thing I've learned that is key is having very strong, direct, clear communication. It's authentic. It's not apologetic, but it is very crystal clear. And that is what I would tell any of your female dentists is really lay out your expectations. We as often as dentists, we get so busy, we're off in our own world that sometimes we think we shared something or maybe we told someone something, but we really weren't clear with our expectations. And that is something I've actually worked on for a long time myself, because sometimes we're afraid we're going to hurt someone's feelings, or we're not sure how to tiptoe around a situation, or we want to be friends with staff. When really early on, you've got to really draw the line in the sand and then make it very clear what your expectations are, and don't back down from that. As a department head, I've been a department head since I arrived here in Italy. You know, I've made it very clear what I am comfortable and not comfortable doing. And also I've had a boss where sometimes him and I don't always agree. We have to agree to disagree, but ultimately I do have to answer him. But the other department heads and I, we are on the same playing field. So if they do something that kind of comes into my territory, if I do something that goes into their territory, we call each other out. But that definitely didn't happen overnight. That definitely took some confidence. And it also took me falling down several times and learning how to pick myself up and admitting, like, guess what? Hey, I screwed up, but I want to make this right. What can I do?
Abraham Maslow even talked about this, in his hierarchical needs. They come out with Maslow's hierarchical needs for staff. But you just first of all, what you initially said was so mind-blowing, and I wasn't able to type fast enough. You said use clear, exact communication?
Yes, so clear, direct communication.
Clear, direct communication. It's hard for me to type with my big fat thumbs. Use clear, direct communication.
Non-apologetic, authentic.
Non-apologetic, authentic.
You can still be very sweet when you communicate, but you're not going to be like, I see so many women, and it's something I used to do myself that is that we want to be people pleasers. We have something that's bothering, and we'll go to our boss, and rather than saying, hey, sir, this is an issue I've seen, and this is how I'm going to resolve it. Sir, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to bother you, but I've got this, you know what I mean? That doesn't come across confidently. Go into a situation knowing what the problem is and also offering a solution. So don't leave someone empty-handed, because you're kind of leaving your expectations out the open. And if you don't communicate that directly, how are you going to know how this other person's going to feel? I mean, I tell people your work relationships, it's like a marriage. You know what I mean? You've got to really lay that groundwork. And if you don't lay down what's important to you, what your needs are, and what needs to be met, you can expect it to change or ever get better.
I thought it was interesting that the military was, their advertising was so scientific years ago, because Abraham Maslow published that paper in 1943, A Theory of Human Motivation, where he talked about the physiological safety, belongingness, need self-esteem. But self-actualization, he said that was the desire to be all that you can be. I mean, that was the advertisement for the military. Be all that you can be. And I remember in 1980, I thought, oh my God, these guys have been reading Abraham Maslow. I mean,
I'm sure that came through. The military does love its history, and they do love its war times and motivational books. I wouldn't be surprised.
One of the things I hear, not just coming out of my drunk mouth at the bar, but when older dentists like me are when we're at the bar watching the Cardinals football game, and we're all, 50s, 60s, and 70s, one of the things I always hear my buddies talk about that they think is strange is the younger millennials are very friendly with their staff. They go out drinking. If there's a convention in Vegas, their dental assistants holding their hair while they throw up in the toilet. And a lot of them think that they don't understand how you draw the line between I'm your leader, I'm your boss, I can fire you, but I want to be your friend. I have belongingness needs. I like you. How does a 30-year-old boss, how should she look at defining friendship? What is crossing the line? What is professional? How do you, because if you get too close to them, they might tell you I can't come in Monday because I'm hungover. And then you're like, well, I'm going to fire you then. And she's like, well, I'm hungover because I was out drinking with you. I mean, how can the person I was out drinking with fire me for not showing up for work at 8 o'clock in the morning?
That's a tough position. And I definitely see a lot of my friends struggle with that, because you want to be close with your staff, that if they have something going on, that they can be confidently vulnerable with you. But at the same time, you have to remember you're the boss. And some of the things that we're taught in the military is that we are taught, such as fraternization, meaning that let's say if I have a housewarming party at my home, I invite the entire department. I invite everyone. So that way, no one, if someone decides not to come over, the perception was that I didn't play favoritism towards another assistant versus someone that came versus someone didn't come. The other thing is that having an employee handbook and just being very clear, like this is how much are spent on gifts. This is how much are going to be spent on a bonus schedule, and really abiding to that. As far as going out and partying with your assistants and going on vacation, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I always tell people anything after 2 drinks, nothing good's going to happen. So with my father, when I worked in his office, whenever we had events, he pretty much, I always remember that we left after a certain time. And that way feel that when we left that people maybe could let their hair down a little bit more. But he said, all right, here's 2 tickets for everyone tonight. You have a choice of beer, wine, or a mixed drink. This is on me. Thank you, like a Christmas holiday party. And then after that, he left, and people were given obviously advice of how to responsibly make it home, but he expected them to be back at the office Monday morning. So it's really, really tough. And I think it's establishing those really early on, because you want to be friendly with everyone. And I think it's just starting it from the forefront, really laying that foundation. It's a lot easier to do it versus, like you said, kind of going back and forth.
And Corinne just said something extremely profound. This flew over her head. Remember what she said? She said, if you want to be friends with your staff, make sure it's your entire staff. No one is left out. The things that I see that are issues is when the dentist, male or female, the staff thinks there's a clique of the in club, and these guys go out and do something. Then there's 4 or 5 people that are not in the club, and they're not invited. And it just and humans are there's a lot of touchy-feely people that really would not make them happy. It could demotivate them. It's weird. So I think what you said is perfect. I mean, you can have an individual friend who's not your employee, but when you're in a dental office, if you're saying, well, I'm going to lunch today at Subway, anybody can go with me. And the other thing I always do is if they follow me to lunch, I always pay for the lunch. I don't go with one person unless it's a meeting, and I don't like food at meetings because are we having a meeting or are we eating? You know what I mean? I don't see how they go together. I would rather have the meeting during lunch for 15 minutes at the dental office, then go to Subway and try to have a dang meeting. I mean, I just people always call me up and they'll say, hey, let's go out for lunch because I want to talk to you about something. Okay, I'll go to lunch with you. That's fine and that's fun. But let's do what you want to talk about right now while I'm at a desk. I'm on my computer. I have your contact open. We can make, I don't know. I just don't like, and I love that nothing ever good happened after 2 drinks. That's probably, when you said that no one ever died from crooked teeth, a lot of people died from crooked morals and crooked drinking habits and a lot of other crooked things.
Exactly.
So how much of, I've seen so much change. I've always been very sensitive. I hate to come back to this issue of male, female, but I grew up with 5 sisters. And in that time, I was born in 1962. My mom would dress me in blue jeans and iron patches on the outside of the knee. And we were about 100 yards from the Arkansas River. And I could swim in it, fish 24 hours around the clock, and didn't have to be home till the streetlights were on. Oh, my God. My sister's a totally different life. Dresses and trouble with soil, had to stand 10 feet back from the edge of the river. I can remember being 10 years old, begging my 2 older sisters to jump in, and they said they can't. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, what advantage do I have in the middle of this river that my 2 older sisters don't have? Especially my older sister, Jean Marie, who was much bigger, faster. She could beat the crap out of me her whole life. And I'm sitting there thinking, she can run me down and beat me up, but she's not allowed to get in the river. I was really sensitive to that, and I think it's really gotten a lot better. How much better do you think it's got from 1960 of women in leadership, opportunities in dentistry, the Navy, the Fortune 500 government?
Oh, it's been huge. I would say there's tons of opportunities that they're constantly offering us. One of the coolest conference I went to was a female leadership conference for doctors while I was stationed here. And several of the admirals of the military admirals and generals were female. So Admiral Bono, who was a 3-star admiral, I mean, which is right below, I mean, it doesn't get much higher than that, than other than 4 stars. She just retired. But I remember when she spoke, she was so charismatic and so congenial. And she said, never give up who you are to be what you want to be. And I just felt that was so profound. And that's something that I would tell every single one of your dentists and dental students who's out there, is that if there is something that you want bad enough, you will find a way to do it. It was the same thing for me. I battled test anxiety. I was a communications major. I thought I wanted to be a journalist and be a news anchor on TV or Fashion Today. And then I decided to go to dental school and then join the Navy. But I somehow still make it work. And even today, those things about me that are very untraditional or not very what you find in the norm of the Navy have been the same things that have opened up doors of opportunity and provided me with cool things like that, such as to lead, because it makes you different. It makes you stand out. So yes, by far, we have definitely overcome a lot of hurdles. And I think we will. I think the important thing right now is really making sure people know about those opportunities and not being afraid to raise their hand and go after it.
That is a great. You said never give up. Never give up who you are to be what you want to be.
Correct.
That is very profound. What are some male, female, when we poll them on Dental Town, since St. Patrick's Day 1999, what stresses you out the most about dentistry? It's always people. It's either the patients or the staff. I mean, it's never, I can't figure out the right bonding agent, or I can't decide if I should go from 3rd generation bonding agent to 7. It's not that I can't find a canal. It's always people. You seem like such a charismatic people person. And I was really shocked to learn more about you, because dentists are usually scientists, they're introverts, they live in a library. When you walk into a dental office, most dental offices, when you walk in the door, it's actually quieter than the library, and these, it's not their norm. They would rather do physics than talk to people. Is this a trainable skill? Is this something you think you were born with? What advice would you give the young dentists? They get in the most trouble because this is what they want to do, and then an older person talks them into doing something that they knew it was a bad idea, but they're, what are you going to do? I'm 25 and you're 65, and so many of these times when dentists get in trouble, you can just tell they never wanted to even do any of this, but they got talked into it, whether it's a patient, a staff, whatever. What advice would you give to learn this skill? And is it learnable? Is there books, courses? How could they be more like you?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I guess it's something I would tell you. It's like leadership. You're not born a natural leader. You're not born a great communicator. It's something that you learn with time. I would definitely say I read a lot of books. I do a lot of courses. I'm constantly looking for ways to challenge myself, because let's be honest, that's the only way we're going to go. If we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards. And for me, what's really been instrumental is I actually worked with a life coach the last few years who really helped hone in on my communication skills, because I wanted someone to put a mirror in front of my face that my family or my friends couldn't do, or they were too biased to do. I wanted someone who really could push me. And I always look at it as like a professional athlete. You look at these athletes who are going to the Olympics, who are training for marathons, like Michael Phelps or, Lance Armstrong, whoever they were. They all had personal trainers. And we know it's not because they were not in good shape. It's because they wanted someone to push them that much more. So for your dentists out there who are starting out, I would start looking at really books about emotional IQ. I would start reading and finding stuff out there. Simon Sinek's another great person. He talks about the infinite game versus the finite game, and seeing, it's kind of taking a step back. And even podcasts, that's my new favorite thing I started doing in quarantine, because there was no Amazon, no mail, no library coming to us here in Italy. And so I started listening to a lot of podcasts when I was cooking, because I wanted to listen to people that really understood this better than I could, and then take down some ideas and think, okay, how can I apply this to me? You're right. People are stressful. I would definitely say in the military, the hardest thing for me is a budget and supplies because I never know when they're going to come. But the hard part for me, for people that I deal with, is, for example, right now, a lot of my patients aren't too excited that I am leaving, and not knowing when the next orthodontist is going to come there is a bit unnerving. And so a lot of it is making people feel at ease. And first and foremost, just listening. Listen to understand, not listen to respond. If you truly listen to what a person is telling you, they're going to tell you all the answers. So just a few things.
That was good. I also love the quote on character consists of what you do on the third and fourth tries. And so many, I think that's another big one where people will say, oh, I tried that. I sent them an email. It's like, well, did you drive over to their house? Did you knock on their door? Did you, people say, well, I tried to get into a specialty school and I didn't get accepted. It's like, well, did you only apply to half the programs in the United States? And if they applied to all the programs in the United States, I know people that their third or fourth tried applied to schools in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And then we're able to come back 2 years later, endodontist or a pediatric dentist or whatever. But I just love it when people, I mean, they said Edison tried 10,000 times to get that light bulb. And, you know, what a leader who could just sit on that bench and just methodically not walk away until he had a light bulb in his hands. I mean, it's just amazing. So what, oh my gosh, this, so what are you thinking of, when you look at the most stressful things, for a human, it's always change. It's change, you know, death of a family, a spouse, a divorce. You're getting ready to change countries. You're getting ready to go from, you know, Italy to Japan. How do you deal with that stress?
Well, I got to tell you, in the military, and I'm also changing jobs, even though I'm still an orthodontist. How I'm an orthodontist in Japan will be probably a little bit different than Italy. I would definitely say, one, you forget after 2 or 3 years what it's like to change, but doing my 7th move in 13 years, I'm starting to get it down pretty well with the military. One is it's asking for help and continuing to ask for help until you get it. Another thing is being really organized. If I took you on a video tour of my house, you would see that I have a couple boxes in each my living room, my bedroom, my bathroom, of stuff that I'm going to mail myself. And then other things are going to go into my express shipment, because at least I will get those items in November and October versus January of next year. The other thing is also just really doing a lot of research and communicating. I can't tell you how many support groups there is now on Facebook, how many online things that they have for the military. I'm blown away. I have a wonderful move checklist that if anyone in your audience wants, this woman wrote this incredible 30-page document for any potential move you might go on. And, girl, military brat turned officer me learned some things from it, which you would think that after growing up and then drinking the Kool-Aid, I would have this down to a science. But, I would just have to tell people it's about the experience, and it's, everyone's anxious, everyone's excited. And you definitely have those days where you're kind of sad. Like, I'm really sad to leave here, Italy. I know I'm going to cry the day I leave, but I also know I could come back here. And I think that's knowing that I made the most of it and I blossom where I'm planted is a good feeling to know that when I leave.
I'm going to make a prediction with you right now. I'm a palm reader. I'm going to read the future because when you've been in this 32 years, you see patterns. And when you see a pattern, it doesn't mean you understand or comprehend what it's all about. But people like you always end up the dean of a dental school. I swear to God, I've seen this. And you went to UNLV, where prosthodontist Lily T. Garcia was the dean. Was she the dean when you were there?
No, when I was in dental school there, our dean, he came from UOP. I was the second graduating class from UNLV. So when I went there, I graduated in 2007. The first class graduated in 2006. And so we had him, and then we had another dean that came in shortly afterwards. I believe it was, I don't know if it was Karen West or if she was there right after I left. But we had a dean, it'll come to my mind. I remember he came from UOP. So I would have to ask my Vegas parents. They could give you a better idea if you want that information.
I only remember my dean. It was just like grammar school. You only had to go there when you were in trouble. You got to go see the principal. You got to go see the dean, and it was always so hilarious. But would you ever want to be a dean? Do you think that'd be a great use of your leadership skills?
One thing I have to say is the deans that I do remember is I remember the Dean of Student Affairs and I remember the Dean of Clinical Services, and that was Dr. Michael Sanders and Dr. Marshall Brownstein. And the thing that I really liked that I learned from them that I would definitely be open to exploring in my career is that they were compassionate about when they spoke to people. They always found something nice to say to a dental student, even if they completely botched a procedure. And the thing that I always loved is that even some of the faculty where maybe their personalities were a little rough around the edges, they would just sit there and listen and make them feel heard and appreciated. And I think there's a lot to be said by that because a dental school in one ways is it is a corporation, but it's a large, big family with multiple personalities, multiple agendas at place. And if you can find a common ground where you can really unite people, I mean, that would be something I definitely would love to be part of.
Back to your oh my gosh, you were in the Miss Back to Beauty pageant. You're in Miss Texas, Miss United States, Miss Galaxy. I always agreed with the Miss Texas, the Miss United States, but the Miss Galaxy and the Miss Universe, don't you think it's a little bizarre that like in Miss Universe, it's always someone from Earth that wins? It almost makes it. I mean, come on. There's 100 billion galaxies, and the winner's always from our solar system. Do you think the Miss Universe is biased towards Earthlings?
Probably, because we know how to speak English.
That question was so dumb because she's like, am I really supposed to answer that question? That was so dumb. But I love that joke. Yeah, you always know who's going to win the Miss Universe. It's always going to be an Earthling. Some of the two most exciting people I ever talked to were Tim and Eric Crown here in Phoenix. They were the founders of Insight. And I remember meeting them for the first time and just thought, they're just two normal boys from Iowa, from Kansas, and I said to him, I said, how did you see this? What was the breakout? I mean, how did you do? I mean, he was like the second or third largest buyer of Microsoft software from Bill Gates and all those guys. And he attributed the whole thing to being an Army brat like you. He said, me and my brother, we spent 3 years in this country. And then we go to another country, and the same people, same, everything's the same, but the results were so different. And they used to lay in bed all the night thinking, well, why was the last country so poor? Why is this one rich? And they just looked at all the difference. And they said by the time they got ready to go to college, they felt like they already understood macroeconomics. And so seeing that, the computer revolution, just seeing how when Amazon went public and in '94, it was a no-brainer from them. And they said, yeah, they attribute the whole thing to being an Army brat, moving to different countries. You've been to so many countries. Does it kind of give you a very interesting, profound sense of macroeconomics and globalism and seeing so many people living such different lives?
It does.
Much of which their culture puts on themselves. I mean, most people have the same resources, but they end up being so different.
I would definitely say it makes you be very introspective. As an American, I would say versus becoming more European the longer I'm over here, because we go through a thing called culture shock. And I know when I go back to the States, I'll go through reverse culture shock because I've done it many times. Is you learn to adapt and you learn how to be resilient very, very quickly. And what I mean by that is something your listeners can relate to and yourself is, in America, we have two or three cars, we have a large house. And when we travel with all our stuff. And if I tell you in Italy or when I went to Morocco for a week, I had a suitcase that was probably the size of my computer screen. And that's all you put in it and nothing else. You learn to enjoy life because here in Europe and what I've experienced in Asia, they truly believe that life is meant to be lived and lived with not very many things. Like they would rather have more time off and then make more money and just go to a place and relax and just spend time with each other. And it's kind of getting off that hamster wheel where us Americans are go, go, go. We want to produce more and more and more. And we want to have more things and bigger houses and more, more country clubs, where here it's like just even eating lunch. An Italian lunch is like a 2-hour minimum affair because they don't understand how Americans, how we bring out all our food. They bring out things, they do a prima piade, secondo piade, which is first plate, second plate, which I have to tell you as Americans, it's sometimes hard because the food is so good and they bring so much. You're like, crap, do I want to save room? Because I don't know if the pasta is going to be really good or this plate's going to be really good. But it definitely gives you a sense of macroeconomics, but it also makes you realize we live in the best country in the world. We have so much opportunity. We get so much more than and so many more freedoms than what I see in other places in the world. Even here in Italy, even a very westernized place, there's things that I don't get here that I truly miss that we have back in the U.S. Like Mexican food.
I couldn't agree with you more. For a while there, I wanted to sit down and write a book called The Giggle Factor because it was so obvious that the poorer and poorer and poorer the countries, the more laughing and giggling and fun. And then when you go to these really rich countries, I mean, go walk down Manhattan, Seoul, Korea, Tokyo, Japan, and it seems like a lot less fun. I mean, it seems like everybody's really serious and really intense and really in a hurry. And then with these kids, I see them coming out of school. They already got $400,000 student loans. They might buy a practice for $750, but they live too big. The too big a house, too big a car, too big a country clubs. All these things. They don't realize all the time and work they're going to have to trade for that. And that's not going to make them happy. And then it seems like it's a vicious circle because then the more they work, then when they come down, they're like, well, I'm not, at the weekend, I'm just not going to go to the lake and fish and have a beer. I'm going to fly to Disneyland or take a cruise or go to Hawaii. And it's just like they really get trapped in this big lifestyle that I think really makes them not giggle as much. And I remember in Kathmandu, I mean, I couldn't believe it at the time I went there. They didn't have their own oil or coal. They had to import all their electricity. So as soon as it was dark, they just turned off the electricity and the whole country just powered down. Everybody would come out in the street. They'd throw a match in the trash can for a fire and start playing soccer and giggling and laughing. And it's just like, my God, this is like the happiest, most fun place. And could you imagine in Phoenix, Arizona, if the governor said, well, to save electricity, we're going to turn off the electricity at dark. Oh my God, there'd be rioting, looting. He'd probably be chased into, Mexico. I mean,
especially right now, because I know you guys have hotter temperatures than what I have here in Italy. I mean, it's 100 degrees here, but I know you guys are well into the triple-digit heat right now. This is probably your hottest month of the year.
Yeah, it'll be 109 today, and
okay.
So I can't believe our hour went by. Of course, time always flies when you're talking to a beauty queen. That's why we did this on video on YouTube and not iTunes. If you're watching this on iTunes, you need to switch to YouTube. My gosh, I just want you to end with last night I talked to some dental students, and they're scared. I mean, it just comes down to their fear. They're third or fourth year students. They don't know if they're going to come out and get a job. They're totally upside down, and it really made me think of those conversations because the last thing you just said was learn to adapt and be resistant. So I'd love your closing thoughts to about a quarter of our viewers are still in dental kindergarten school. The rest are all under 30. What would you tell these scared kids in a pandemic? And they're also scared because they're not getting the clinic hours, so they already know when they graduate, they're thinking employers are going to say, yeah, but you were a pandemic kid. Didn't you only do like 7 fillings in all of dental school? They're just scared. What would you tell them? I mean, if anybody has to deal with fear on a daily basis, it would be a soldier. What would your ending thoughts be for these kids?
One thing I would tell them is I would create a vision board. I would create a board, something they could look at every single day, something that is filled with words and pictures that ignites a fire inside of them. Because I will tell them that if I showed them my vision board, I put things on a board that now came to full fruition in my life a few years later. The other thing is I would tell them, think of really, where do they want to practice? And maybe if they want to practice in a location where it's very competitive, think about other places where they'll be happy. The United States is a very large country. There's tons and tons of places they can practice. And maybe some of the best experience that they can get to regain maybe those dental experiences they didn't have in a pandemic could be in a rural area, could be in a community clinic. I remembered one of my friends when she graduated from dental school, she got her Nevada dental license. And then her husband decided to buy a bike shop in Hawaii. And so she just got taking the rep and had to take a central regional board. And she's like, Corinne, what are we going to do? I have so much debt. We're moving to Hawaii. It's so expensive. I said, go work for a community. Go do a job that no one wants to do and do it well. Because that is what has helped me put on the rank of commander in 12 years. Is I volunteered and raised my hand to do those jobs that no one wants to do. And by doing that, by pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, you're going to learn. And when you get into those environments, trust me, I understand you not feeling comfortable. Even going to dental school for 4 years and not during a pandemic, I didn't get to do every single procedure. I didn't get to try everything I wanted to try. You graduate with a license to know where your limitations were, but don't be afraid to do an AGD or GPR. Don't be afraid to seek out mentors. I would tell you, when I was looking to leave the military, I reached out to 60 orthodontists in the local area I was practicing because I wanted to talk and hear from them. And there is nothing, if you ask someone, say, hey, listen, I'd like to take you out for a cup of coffee and just get 15 minutes of your time. Don't be afraid to make that call. Don't be afraid, and I always tell people, try to do something in person or try to do something video or Zoom versus doing an email if you can. I understand we all have limitations to social distancing, but taking the time to do that and then following up with a personal thank you card or an email or something that that will serve them will pay you dividends in the future. I would also encourage them to join a study club, a local study club of the area that they want to join. That's a great way for them to network. If they haven't already, creating a profile on LinkedIn. I find that LinkedIn is a little bit different than Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram for me is fun. It's definitely a resume, but I cannot tell you how many times I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn, offer me a job to go to Saudi Arabia for 3 months and practice orthodontics. And, because it's a location no one wants to go, they're willing to pay me extra money or willing to help pay my student loan debt. Being in the military, I can't go. However, it's really putting all those feelers out there and really fine tuning their resume. And having mentors, having multiple mentors. I have multiple people in different areas of my life that I go to and ask for help or reach out to, and people that I mentor to in return. I know it's scary, but guess what? You got through dental school. You got this. And you are stronger than you realize and smarter than you think. And as long as you put one foot in another, you will get through this.
That brings up you opened up a Pandora's box because a lot of dental students are stressed about their Facebook page and their Instagram page because some people are letting it all hang out and showing you every wild and crazy thing they do. And then someday they're going to be trying to get a job or they might be trying to get in the Navy. What advice would you have for their postings on Facebook? I mean, some that will just never post anything about religion, sex, politics, violence. They'll never show themselves, drinking on the table or doing Jello shots. And then other ones, they show everything. What social media advice would you give if they wanted to climb a corporate ladder like in the U.S. Navy?
One thing I tell them, and I actually say this to all my sailors that I work with, is that I don't post anything on social media that I wouldn't want my mom to see. And if you think of it that way, then you're going to be in pretty good shape.
That's perfect. My mom's a crazy, big drinking Irish lady. So, my God, I could post anything. And the crazier it is, the harder she'll laugh. So that was perfect advice for me. I can post anything.
But yeah, no, but really, I mean, think about it. I if you have something that's up that, this is where having a good mentor is help that you're questioning, show it to your mentor. And if they think, listen, this may actually close a door, not open a door, take it down or make your social media private or create a separate social media account that you would have that's more public versus private. There's multiple ways around it. But, my good rule of thumb is that anything that I put on social media, I'm okay for everyone seeing because if I'm in a swimsuit, I'm on a boat, I'm in the beach. It makes sense to be at a swimsuit on a beach or on a boat. May not make sense to be a swimsuit other places. So I just, I kind of go with that mindset of do something that, post something that you would be okay with your parents seeing. And if you think of it that way, you really can't go wrong.
Last and final question. I know I've told you 3 last questions. You said America is a really big country, and it really is. I mean, it's like 3.6 million square miles. There's 50 states. But going to Europe the last 30 years, No one ever talks about Europe like the United States of Europe. I mean, no one would compare Italy to Denmark or Greece to Germany. Do you feel with the EU and all that Europe is kind of feeling more like a United States of America, or is it still a totally different feeling of different countries that have a common economic agreement or something?
It's the latter, what you said. It is completely different. It's and for example, my cousin, her husband works for FedEx, and they're both reserves in the military station in Germany. And I remember her, I picked her up at the airport, and she was like this against the window. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Corinne, someone's going to hit us. Someone's going to run over us." And she's only a 2-hour flight away from another country. So yes, it is very, very different. Just the cultural, the language, the food, the atmosphere. Obviously within Italy, it has its variations, but yes, Europe is definitely a collection of different countries. And I think sometimes the United States, we do have differences. They're just not as profound because we all speak English. We just might have a different accent depending on what part of country we're at or we're speaking to.
All right. Well, it was just a huge honor for you to come on the show and talk to my homies and all the advice you give them. Dr. Corinne Devin, DMD, MS, Commander, United States Naval Medical Readiness Training. Thank you so much for coming on the show all the way from Catania, Sicily, Italy.
Catania, Italy, Sicilia.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And what time is it now? It's 11:30 a.m. here. What time is it there?
It's 8:30 at night here, sirs.
All right. Well, you got to go get ready for bedtime soon. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's truly been a pleasure. Have a good night. Ciao.
All right. You too. Ciao.